Namaskar, hello, and welcome to episode number 77 of Global Daily Insights with Sree and Sree. Sree Chityalaji, Namaskar, and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskaram and good morning to all.
Today is January 19, 2021, and as United States starts getting ready for the inauguration of its president, new president, it's unprecedented security that has been thrown around Washington. And now people are saying that there isn't that much of a concern, that everything is going to be fine. So to get the real situation on the ground and a little bit more into what has been happening on the January 6th event, Chityalaji, please take it away and start from perhaps what is going on as regards the inauguration.
Great, thank you so much. So we now have close to 30,000 troops and National Guards combined. So it's almost like a mini battalion. The combined forces is greater than the total number of forces in Afghanistan, Somalia, and other places where U.S. troops are physically present, Iraq, in those locations. So it's almost like, that now the DC capital is under siege. There are two or three things that are going on. One, there's this perceived belief or perceived fear that there could be somebody, an insider in the defense or in the army or in the National Guard. So they have, gone through an extensive process. The Department of Defense has confirmed that in the process of validation, they have now not found anything which is of an imminent threat from inside inside these two specific groups, which are tasked with guarding the inauguration. Okay. And the way they're broken up is the DC Guard commanders basically do the vetting of the troop backgrounds. The Department of Defense and FBI does the vetting of the National Guard members. Okay. Now, when you look at this type, there's a lot of murmur that is going on across people. This has never happened because all of them go through an extensive screening process. Why? Now to go through this screening process in the middle of an event and what exactly people are looking for. So if you're a Republican, you are suspicious, are they also looking at the background records of, whether you are a Democrat or a Republican? And if you're a Democrat, are you making sure that, what exactly are you looking for in these types of people in background? So you have this unusual kind of a suspicion that was reported on both sides of the media. But anyway, setting that aside, that this process is complete. Also, I think that there is the Department of Homeland Security officials who have done a preliminary investigation that needs to go on. They believe that the events in Capitol Hill unfolded and into a big catastrophe because of probably inexperience at agency, the inexperience at the agency level in terms of state of preparedness and in terms of organizing themselves for what was to come, right? Now, you can argue that all of them were from the Republican side coming from the Trump rally. You can argue some of them came from Antifa, BLM, all these kinds of things. And then you have the social media platforms suppressing information if you use any of the alternative, basically saying fact-checking, fact-checking, fact-checking. So there's no truth, but there is this perception based on this. There's an impeachment process that has been triggered, notwithstanding the damage that has been done. So this incompetence or inexperience has been blamed as one of the attributes which resulted in the melee in the Capitol Hill.
Now let's take a look at 2,000 new National Guard troops have been sworn in as special marshals. Any reason why that was undertaken, sir?
Well, they needed to get an additional battalion. So therefore, they quickly, and these are screened and vetted. So they don't need to go through this specific process again. So they have been given, marshals have, special briefs. And so, if they have to deal with any insurgency or violence during this event, right? So this is the whole perception of this buildup. So that is the reason why they went through an accelerated process.
Let's take a look at the overall politics in the United States. Mike Pence has made an interesting announcement. He said that he's proud of no wars under Trump administration. It is an incredible feat because you and I know how powerful the arms lobby is in the United States, and when there are no wars, they don't get to make much money. That in itself is a very impressive achievement, isn't it, sir?
It is an impressive accomplishment, under the U.S. presidency. Now, one of the most interesting aspects, which we will bring out in due course, is the accomplishments of the Trump presidency, right? Because he's been, there's visceral hatred and unilaterally and universally condemned. And so, therefore, all the good things that he did doesn't come out. There was considerable exports that took place in the defense sector. So therefore, and they, for example, India was a big market, and Singapore was a big market, Taiwan was a big market, UAE was a big market. They also had more arms going to Saudi Arabia. So therefore, there was exports driving, and they were even willing to go and do what you call as domicile manufacturing. The deal struck with India was a joint venture partnership, transfer of technology, plus capital infusion by the defense enterprises from here in India, and the build out that happened. Well, Vietnam is another country which has also emerged as one of the importers of the US armory, right, besides Taiwan. So I think that there has been that particular change. So what has not been consumed domestically by war, they have been able to successfully augment through the strategic partnerships that has been developed by even Navy. U.S. has this Quad has helped considerable amount of pay-per-use type of a model relative to what prevailed. Otherwise, it was all costs borne by United States, including NATO. Right? NATO was only part funded, but a lot of it was funded by United States as a deterrence kind of a mechanism. So I think it is a laudable achievement, no war, as well as the point that you have made. How did they keep the defense manufacturing and the defense industry going without any economic compromises?
Now, I have a news item here where one website, Newsmax, that also has a TV channel, is saying that CNN is trying to deplatform us. Now, CNN is also another media channel. I'm a little confused as to how one media channel can try and deplatform another media channel, sir. Can you please elaborate?
Well, I think that there is some of these channels have interconnectivity in terms of leveraging their licenses to get access into the cable companies, right? So CNN may have sub-licensed, without going into the specific details. So they're saying like Newsmax is something that is almost like they're not a sister company of CNN, but they're probably on the back of their licensing where they have gained access. That is why we can get Newsmax on your web, broadcast via your cable network. And in many places, the cable network, is also an ISP. For example, Cablevision, Spectrum is an ISP, as well as people have licensed a specific set of channels for content. So they're saying they're using their power to deplane, because the reason is, as you all know, Newsmax is showing more the right, which is the Republican flavored content, whereas CNN is showing the left flavored content, though they would like to say that they were objective. But all these divisions have arisen, as well as what has happened in the last 3-4 months. And so therefore you are beginning to see, you can ask the question, Parler, okay, why would you throw it out when you have actually sold a service as part of the cloud services of Amazon Web Services architecture? Why would you do it? Well, you do it because you are taking a specific position and you're using the word, anything that you broadcast anything that you allow as an access under this freedom of press can potentially lead to incitement. So therefore we are blocking. So we're seeing the change in the rules of the game as a result of this one specific event that has occurred in DC. So all these are fallout that are coming out.
Biden has picked some Warren allies to lead departments like financial oversight agencies, the SEC, and the CFPB. What does this indicate for us? Should United States businesses be concerned?
Well, the banking industry is certainly very concerned. The Wall Street is extremely concerned. Senator Warren has always had her eyes set on the on Wall Street on essentially three specific principles. One is more regulation, more consumer protection, and also that the part of the reform that Biden is trying to impose, which is being objected to some extent by the boards of the corporations, is especially banking, is what should be the composition of the board. And the view of Biden is the composition of the board determines the rights and interests of various constituent groups who make up the investor community, right? Whether you are, economically privileged or underprivileged, who happen to be, or whether you belong to specific segments of the community who are also shareholders and stakeholders in the company. Remember, banks also issue stock to their own employees. They all are stakeholders, whether those interests are being taken care, etc. Now, his belief is that by having this equality in the composition of the board, the various issues associated with various categories of investors can be met. Now, the boards are saying we are always for shareholder interest and shareholder value. So we have due accountability. This is not just, picked away by large institutional investors who also serve on the board. You remember the board is determined in the United States through an election process by majority shareholders. Every shareholder participates. So I think this is the issue that they're getting to, but the boards, the banks, the financial institutions are kind of rebelling it in terms of the reform. In terms of the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, this is a baby in the brain of Rohit Chopra and Madam Warren, right? This is their brainchild, that they have to have this, they have to have terms and conditions, the interest rate should not rise, it should not be above this. None of these people have any kind of iota of due accountability and due choices. They simply come in and say, by doing all these things, somehow they think that they can control. None of them have managed balance sheets. Rohit Chopra has never managed a balance sheet in his life. Okay, he comes from McKinsey. At least Gensler comes from Goldman Sachs, where he has spent 18 years, and he was recruited by Obama in 2008. But many of these people have kind of, established interest, and they carry that, and that seems to become the policy framework of the administration. In summary, the markets believe Biden, if he was center left, if Clinton was center left and Obama was center left, then you're going to see Biden being left. I don't know how left he will go, but he's going left, which is causing some kind of tremor in the minds of the people, especially in Wall Street, who don't want more regulation.
And now on the second impeachment of Trump, Dick Durbin is a very senior Democratic senator, and he is saying that he will not recommend his colleagues to vote on impeaching Trump. Now, this almost gives one the impression that the second impeachment was a Pelosi personal witch hunt. Is it? How do you see this, sir? Pelosi should have ramrodded this second impeachment.
Well, I think it's a very interesting statement that he has made, very similar to Mitch McConnell's statement. I can understand Mitch McConnell making a statement, which is to say, I'm giving the Republican, my fellow senators, their consciousness and their right choice to make an appropriate decision whether to impeach or not impeach, what type of vote should be cast by them so that they can conduct a proceeding. Now, Dick Durbin to come and make this statement is very interesting, but he's also a very experienced senator, right, who has been in Senate for quite some time. It's very interesting and intriguing for him to make a statement. So this is making the media, there was a lot of media discussion yesterday in the United States, and that is, really, is this basically a personal vendetta of certain segments, especially notably Nancy Pelosi, and are they even going to proceed actually with impeachment? Because the reasons are that the impeachment, the articles of impeachment, today is the 19th, has not reached the Senate as yet. It is still held on to by Nancy Pelosi in the House. So it's some casting some doubts, whether this is going to reach the Senate. And she may also be validating the constitutional question, which we discussed yesterday, if I recall, right? So is there a constitutional validity to impeach a president who is no longer a president? And if it is about removing from office, he's already leaving the office tomorrow morning by this time. Around this time, he will be leaving his office. So the question is this, the constitutional validity. So I think it's making this whole thing a little bit of a mockery and unwarranted distraction. We have also discussed the point there was nothing conducted, either whether his speech constituted an incitement to insurrection, whether it is an impeachable offense. Nothing was conducted. It just, as you rightly said, ramroded, and a decision was made just by pure brutality of the votes.
Kamala Harris has finally resigned her Senate seat, and we know that Jose Padilla, if I remember correctly, is going to be representing California. So that I think that process is now beginning to start. Now, I want to touch upon this next point. We are running a little bit behind, so I would like to speed up. Trump extends the border emergency until February 2022. Is this in direct response to this Honduras caravan, sir?
It is. It is, because he doesn't want to have, he says we have problem in southern borders. There's too many people coming in. We have a COVID situation. We also have, many people unemployed. And the last thing that we want at this is a community-based mass COVID blowout. And there has been growing COVID situation in particularly around in 30 states, of which quite a few are in the southern region in south of United States, south and west of United States. So I think that's his principal kind of concern.
Now, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has released photographs of suspects beating the police officer and planting pipe bombs. That kind of tells you that it's all pre-planned, isn't it?
Well, this is look. Let's wait for the investigation. But the evidence or the conclusions that one can draw is there seems to have been some kind of a pre-planned activity. There was a brief report, and that impression, obviously, that information was for the sake of public safety. Kept aside. Both are, there were a couple of locations that kept these pipe bombs. They were found and diffused, and it looks like the photographs, the CCTV cameras have picked that up. And I think once they complete the investigations, we'll have more truth coming out.
Thank you, sir. And let's take a look at global now. Trump has now lifted travel restrictions from Europe, UK, Brazil, and so on. So that means that people can travel from the United States to these countries. What kind of reciprocal restrictions that exist from these countries back to the United States? Is it now mean like travel as normal?
No, it just simply means that they have put an additional condition, which is effectively to state, which is very similar to Dubai, that you have to come in and land with a certificate that you have been tested and you are tested negative. They got to have the certificates.
Oh, thank you. Now at WHO, US and China have clashed over the scientific mission in Wuhan. Now we are beginning to see the aftermath of this virus as US and China lock horns in WHO. This is still the outgoing administration people who are carrying on this fight, isn't it? How do you see the new administration playing this?
Well, firstly, the clash is, United States the present administration, you're right, basically stating, we told you so, we told you so, we told you so. WHO, there's been a lapse. They should have. You remember the political kind of, buffoonery that went on. They should not be called China virus. It should be called COVID. Now, it's very clear that the WHO study has found that the virus did emanate from there. And they felt that had people been informed ahead of time, they could have planned better. And also information exchange would have also helped to address this issue. This is the debate between WHO and the people in the Wuhan region. Having said that, China itself is seeing backlash. They have kind of gated somewhere between 39 to 49 billion people around 5, 6 regions who are now got mass affliction with this COVID virus. So this is the debate, and this is the kind of which is what Trump administration had said before, and WHO was initially reluctant. Now they have come to the conclusion, based on their initial visit, this to be the case.
Now, WHO is also saying that China could have acted quicker and could have contained this virus within their borders, isn't it?
It is. That's what that is. Apparently, quite a few of these people became travelers, and that's how it began to spread. Started in northern Italy, if you recall, and then it
Yes.
made its way around into the various parts of the world. That is almost coinciding with the Chinese New Year holiday travel, which again we reported in one of the shows, and then it just cast its way. So how did United States get it? A lot of travelers came, but they were blocking. If you recall, they were trying to block airlines, air travel coming from China, when actually the virus came from Atlantic, cross Atlantic.
At the United Security Council, United Nations Security Council, India welcomes the Abraham Accords. That's what they call all these accords between Israel and many West Arab nations. So, was this like a video conference in which this statement was made?
Yeah, I think it is a video. There's no in-person meetings, as you know. That most of these conferences are, video conference sessions. And there's also a representative. So sometimes these representatives can follow the social distancing patterns, right? So we have a UN ambassador here in New York, and so there's also social distancing. So India acknowledged, as a reciprocal, as a gesture to the contribution of Arab League, as well as also endorsed the United States West Asia peace deal organized with Israel, and that augurs well for the region in terms of stability.
Another interesting development, the Russian foreign minister has discussed the Indo-Pacific activity with Subramaniam Jaishankar, and he calls him his good friend. Now, there is some perception that Russia is trying to keep US and India apart and not get closer. How much credence do you attribute to that?
Well, we are in geopolitics, right? So we are in politics. Politics is about posturing, right? It's about posturing. So they see an opportunity that, Biden doesn't talk about Quad. Quad is the security apparatus that is protecting the South China region. Why South China and that part of the world? I think we have covered little bits of it, but we'll cover from an economic context separately. It is the region of the future in terms of the next decade when you look at the economic growth and economic activity and all the kind of research. So they're saying, whether US is going to be soft by virtue of Biden having a distinctly different policy, and Kurt Campbell coming in and saying, who is their Asian representative appointed by Biden, that I need to have the Indo-Pacific orchestration of our army much broader, extending into Indian Ocean, rather than very specific focus around the South China or South China and extension into Pacific. So therefore, I think that he's taking cognizance of that and making a statement. Now is the time for me to tap my shoulders on my good friend, Mr. Dr. Jaishankar. He's not Mr. Dr. Jaishankar, and telling him, hello, how are you, sir? And, I'm here. I'm your good old friend. I'll not let you down. So it's a very interesting geopolitical statement. In the absence of, there's nobody from the Biden side tapping. Previously, it used to be Secretary Pompeo, tapping the shoulders of Jaishankar and saying, "Hey, how are you, man? And how are you doing? We are back here." So there's nobody. So I think that it's a posture that is going on. Whether it will translate into any specific outcomes, it remains to be seen. Remember, Russia is also kind of tiptoeing with China.
Yes, indeed. And viewers, this news did not make it into MSM in India, and I think this is very, very important. There has been a drift away from WhatsApp, especially in India, over its privacy concerns. And yesterday, the Delhi High Court listened to WhatsApp, and I think they also listened to Facebook. And there was an interesting thing where two senior lawyers were confused as to which company they were representing, and there was banter going on. Oh, you are Facebook or I'm Facebook, and so on. So this just tells you that this game is very, very interesting when it comes to representing cases of foreign companies in India. But be that as it may, the Delhi High Court has made a very important observation that I think actually helps companies like PGurus, and we'll tell you why. Sridharji, you want to expand a little bit on that?
Well, I think that first and foremost, I think it's the first most compelling kind of delineation. Delhi High Court says WhatsApp is a private company, right, or a public company. If I have to use in United States parlance, it's a public company. It's a public company. It's independent. It has its set of business rules. It operates within the business rules. You have a choice. You use it. I mean, if you don't like it, don't use it. It's like this. You are interested in the stock, you invest in the stock. If you're not interested in the stock, don't need to invest. There's no mandate for you to follow it. So therefore, because you are using it, you don't come and tell us that it has to follow these principles. So I think to me, it's a very intelligent and very compelling proposition, which is to say, those are the rules. Don't complain about Twitter. That's his rules. Okay, it's a public. He is accountable to his board. He's not accountable to any government, right? So therefore, if you are interested, use it. If you're not interested, don't use it. There's always an alternate.
Yes, indeed, there is always an alternative, and I'm going to segue right into one of the alternatives, which happens to be promoted by yours truly. It's called VAD, VAAD. It's Sanskrit for discussion. VAD, Vivad, we all know that. And VAAD is a simple enough thing to remember. It is in beta test right now for Android users. Any of you who are on Android, I encourage all of you to download this app. It has a very strong feature, which is that it can support multiple languages as translations. You could have three different friends, one a Gujarati speaking, one a Hindi speaking, and one a Telugu speaking, and you can set it up in such a way that each of them can be comfortably conversing in their language, and you as an English speaking person would be able to get everything in English. This was specifically tailored for the needs of India, where there are 20 plus official languages, and we hope that this feature alone will take it over the top. Again, it's VAD, V-A-A-D. You can go to Google Play and then search on it and install it. And please give us your feedback. We are looking forward to making this a very compelling platform to use. It is a very, very secure product, and it's going to have a lot more applications. Bells and whistles that are coming over the next few weeks and months. Just stay tuned. I just wanted to put that thing out there because the next topic is very, very important. Bangladesh, China, and Myanmar, they are now holding tripartite talks on Rohingyas. Actually, the problem is of Rohingyas sitting in India, and why are these three countries having tripartite talks? I have no clue. Perhaps you can shed some light on it.
No, I think that it is the geopolitical interest of China. I think we covered China posturing with Myanmar because of this whole, Mekong River
Mekong,
Valley initiative. Mekong River Valley initiative, which is, the Vietnam and Vietnam has taken the industry, and Thailand is focused around the agro and farming, and that the whole river belt that forms the basis. So if you and Cambodia, the relationship is in a little bit of ruffles. So they're trying to see whether they can get into Myanmar. And Myanmar is also an important border on the other side with India. So therefore, it is strategic to them. They have been trying to, court partnership with Bangladesh. And if you recall, again, we covered in this session as to how United States came to the rescue, and US and Japan have been augmenting the capital in the infrastructure development and the port work that needs to happen in Bangladesh. So therefore, now again, you see a gap because Biden, in his first 100 days, he is not going to Asia, is not his focus. So they're beginning to get a wind as to keep going at these countries, and their whole objective is only one: India. Because India is the dark horse sitting there. It is going to be the number three economy by GDP in the next 5 to 6 years, or even faster. It is already by PPP is probably number three, or number three in the world. It is number five. So the question is, how do you keep India out? There's two ways. One, surround the neighbors and take out the strategic partnerships. Second, you kind of create ruptures within the country, or you use your allies strategic. So India has problems with these ruptures. India has problems. They try to create problems with Nepal. They try to create problems in Arunachal Pradesh. They try to create problems in the Ladakh area. So they have been kind of poking their way around, just as India has extended its tentacles into South China Sea, having partnerships with Taiwan, South Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia. Similarly, India is also forming a strategic initiative with Bangladesh and Bhutan and Nepal to kind of complete that particular segment of the East. So it is natural for them to find an agenda that suits their motive and basically come and say, I can be a good arbitrator for you and Bangladesh in terms of the resettlement of the Rohingyas, which are in Bangladesh. If you need money, I'll give you the money for the resettlement process. By the way, when I do that, I need this in return.
And World Economic Forum is now planned to be held in May in Singapore. We will keep you informed on the developments on that. And South Korea's Prime Minister Moon hopes that United States and North Korea can restart the nuclear dialogue under the new presidential dispensation. What are your thoughts? Do you think any status change is possible vis-a-vis North Korea?
Right through the Obama-Biden period, there was constant and consistent sparring that was going on between North Korea, Japan, South Korea, and United States. When the guy was threatening to launch missiles and attack the Pacific coast and attack the west coast of United States. And I don't know whether you remember, Dennis Rodman was sent, and then he came back and said, this guy is a good guy. You can work with him, and I had a great time. But nothing kind of moved. So you have this concern at least, in the last 4 years, this guy has been kept quiet. He has stopped his rhetoric. He has not been making daily threats, and he's not been firing missiles into the Korean Peninsula or South China Sea. So therefore, there seems to be a peace. Oh my God, South Korea is saying, hey, United States, would you continue and shake hands with him just as you guys did in Singapore? I don't think, highly unlikely, if the present regime continues the same policy as they did before.
And I look at the global markets. United States stocks futures have risen over at Wall Street after a losing week last week. Is this because of a feeling that things are settling down vis-a-vis the presidential nomination and process?
No, I think that there are two reasons. One is Janet Yellen is having a Senate hearing today. The second, I think that the second reason is more around the stimulus. There is namely they believe that there would be a much more detailed presentation around the stimulus. And one of the first items would be the discussion of this $1.9 trillion stimulus that needs to get through the Senate. It's been approved by the House, but it has to get through the Senate. So I think it's more a reflection of the money flow into the markets, and also the most important point is what is her position on interest rates.
Yes, and also there is some clarification that is needed. I think she used the word PPP for small and medium enterprises, and when we looked at the 1.9 trillion charter, it did not find a place in that one. So I think there is some confusion there, isn't it?
It is. I think we should probably reserve, I'm conscious of the time too. So I think we probably need to do a separate session. There is a line item called $350 billion, if my numbers are correct, that is set aside for local and state administration. community. So she probably has picked that number, and saying that local and state administration means that the communities are going to be helped within that line item of the budget, and part of that budget may be allocated perhaps towards the PPP program. That's the only way that number can add up to that specific number that she has in mind. I'm only using the numbers as a basis rather than the actual line item of PPP. The actual line item of PPP we did not see in the $1.9 trillion budget.
Quickly wrapping up, Japan markets are poised to rise this week, and Singapore has sustained its export momentum in 2020 despite the COVID. So there are, islands of, excellence, not just there, but also in India, where some companies are done extremely well, isn't it?
Well, I think the first and foremost, Singapore has repositioned and non-oil exports, because the reason is a lot of the refining and other things storage happens, and because, as you probably know, is one of the largest ship maintenance ports in the world. So besides the oil, they have been expanding other types of products. They are even manufacturing certain items within Singapore, recognizing the fact that they need to continue to grow, and the continued growth comes from not through volatility in trading and not through volatility in business flows, but more through managing themselves by being a very small manufacturer. After all, it's a small nation. So 4.3% was the exports. A small number, but then that's a good number as far as Singapore is concerned. So it sustained, notwithstanding the fact they contracted in 2020. It augurs well for Singapore, and they have a very orchestrated stimulus program. I think they'll come out. They'll be one of the first countries to come out, as you look at 2021.
And Malaysia is also rolling out an additional stimulus package. And so the countries are still rolling out their own versions of this stimulus. And I'm wondering what India has in its kitchen, what's going to come out. Any thoughts on that?
I think the budget that 20 before since you made one specific one, I think there's a lot of people in the IT sector from India. So I just want to make I don't generally take very active a kind of a monitor, if I have to use the word, in the underlying growth and profitability. But I was one of the few people who, from the United States, was responsible for many offshoring and onshoring and captive when I was in the leadership roles at JP Morgan Chase. Today, JP Morgan Chase is one of the largest kind of onshore captives in India. We had 4 strategic partners, and the business has grown quite rapidly from the time there was a suspicion as to whether India is a viable market in terms of being a reliable and trustworthy and secure kind of a partner. But what I need to point out is that in 2020, based on the markets, they have seen a remarkable growth in numbers. Okay, I'm going to read the numbers. They had something close to 200 billion Indian rupees in the last quarter, the highest volume achieved over the duration. And the profitability growth was around 22%, and the margins was between 23 and 30%. All the IT majors, which is HCL, Wipro, Infosys, and Tata's, has shown remarkable growth. This belies the principle that there is a saturation and the growth is only 4% possible. That also says that there is considerable amount of automation and digital transformation work that is going on, which is driving the need for enhanced usage of IT resources, COVID or non-COVID, because IT is an industry which has embraced this COVID with remote working more admirably than many. In fact, this is one of the criticisms raised by many governments. The IT sector should have, brought the other fellows along on board and brought them and taught the best practices. But kudos to the IT industries in India and the people behind it for continued drive of momentum. I believe it has every potential to be between 5 to 8. It's already, I think, 5% somewhere between 6 to 10% of the GDP. It has the potential. Many strategic partnerships are coming into fruition between United States and Europe. Remember, US and Europe both experienced contraction in GDP, but the IT volume in India servicing these two markets reflected a significant gain.
So one can expect that to trickle down to other parts of the economy in India. So we'll have to wait and watch that. And with this, we bring an end to our today's episode. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channels. Sridharji, namaskar, and looking forward to talking to you again tomorrow.
Namaskar and thank you, sir.